POSTCAST tonight. David Locke along with Ron Boone as we come to you from Philadelphia after the Jazz blow out the 76ers 99-71. And Ron, really the first question I has to ask before you delve in, like, what do you take out of this? I mean, they're not particularly good. So what do we take out of a performance of this nature?
Well, probably more individual things. I mean, not so much. Well, you have to take something out of it. I would imagine Coach Snyder will go over the film and he'll pick out things that he liked and pick out things that he did not like. But, this is a team, I'm talking about the Philadelphia 76ers, that is work in progress. I mean, this is a very young basketball team. They seem to be using some of the same stuff that Quinn Snyder uses, but the Jazz are executed their offense and their defense was a little bit better. Okafor, very impressed with him, but he has a long way to go, I think. And once he's gone around the league and then he realizes, what he can do and what he can't do against the guys is just as tall as he is.
Jazz hold them to 30% shooting tonight. So that's a sign, really. The Jazz, and this is a little bit what we saw against them last year, is that the Jazz are a defensive team. And a defensive team comes out and plays their game against an inferior offensive team. They really stifle them. Philadelphia last year was one of the worst offensive teams of all time. And this is what the Jazz did to them last time also. So I think that's important. We talk about whether this team finds its identity. They've got some offensive-minded guys in Alec Burks and Rodney Hood that have increased roles from the group that played to close last year. And they've got to remember that this is a defensive team. You still have to score, but I thought we saw them play with that identity, and the Wasatch front was dominating between Gobert and Favors.
And I think from watching the first two ball games and remember how the Jazz finished last year, that's going to be their staple. It's going to be their defense. And I don't think their offense is as ready as Quinn Snyder would like for it to be, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take for that to really kick in to that gear, to the point where your defense is to the point where your offense will dictate your defense. Right now, the defense is definitely dictating the offense.
Offensively, Johnny Bryant said to us at halftime, much better recognition of the weak side than they've had before, and that's important. The way everybody plays defense now, where you slide 4 or 5 guys over to the strong side. We saw that one play in particular. Trey Burke got in the lane and flipped it over to Alec Burks for corner 3. That's exactly the kind of plays that Trey Burke needs to make as a point guard, and we saw him do that a lot tonight. But we saw the whole team using both sides of the floor, recognizing the weak side more than they did last against Detroit.
And that's going to be such a key. And when that happens, then you'll see more. The Jazz ended up with 19 turnovers tonight, and I think that's
19 assists.
19 assists, I'm sorry. And that's probably where they're going to end up for the year, somewhere in there, 19, 20, 21 assists a game. When players in basketball, that is going to be a key, because when you watch them in practice and they love to skip pass over the top of the defense to get that 3-point shot in the corner.
Jazz only had 8 turnovers tonight. That's one thing Philadelphia really generally does very well. They were the second best team in the league last year at forcing turnovers. So for the Jazz to get the only 8 turnovers was awfully good. Favors was a beast again. This is 2 nights in a row and Nerlens Noel is a good defensive player. This was, this is not him facing Ersan Ilyasova, some undersized guy. But he was a beast. 20 points, 12 rebounds. He's linked 2 fabulous games together.
And right now, being that what they would call a stretch 4, he's stretching about 15 to 18 feet away from the basket, and that's about it. Otherwise, everything's coming, pretty close to the basket. Defensively, him and Rudy to protect each other. Like I said, 189 blocks for Rudy last year, and I think 124 for Derek. That's a heck of a lot of blocks. That's defense. And if you're going to be funneling guys into the paint, with those guys back there, you can come up with some block shots and some fast break points.
Wasn't a particularly good offensive night by the Jazz. They shot 41%, but they do make 7 threes. So that makes it a little bit better, puts them at around 40 for 88 on their efficiency, which is below the 50% effective field goal percentage you'd like on a given night. They go to the free throw line 25 times, make 20, and don't turn it over. So it probably comes out to about average or maybe a little above average by the time the night's done. But it was not a particularly good offensive night for this team. But that's not a game that maybe yielded that either. It seemed like Quinn tried a few things at different times as well. Let's go to a question that has just come in from Daniel Woden. Daniel wants to know, who are the comps for Raul Neto? I have not tried this game. I love this game usually.
Who
this
are
is
the what?
comps, so comparable players to Neto. Like, what would you compare? So we're talking about a 6'2" distributing guard. And the question then is, how does he evolve? So Goran Dragic came into this league and really struggled, 38% shooting and struggled. And then he became a driving, penetrating guard. So I don't know if that's who he becomes. I mean, it's hard to kind of figure out. Also, the thing I don't have any vision of is, what is he going to be like in 12 to 24 months? Is he going to be a different player? Is he going to learn? We haven't seen enough of him either. He's got to get his butt handed to him a few times. He's got to go through a shooting slump. I don't have any idea. It's a good question, because I usually love playing that game. Ron, does any?
I totally agree with you. I don't. Where his cutters are, and he seems to know the game pretty well. But I think it should take a while before
every guy is coming up to me that I'm thinking of. Frankly, he's a poor man's version. So Ricky Rubio type, where you're really assisting instead of shooting. But I don't know if
I think we need to be careful about putting the label on him.
Right, I don't have it. Yeah. High assist. It's gonna be I think he's the kind of guy who, if he has the night he wants to have, he probably has as many assists as he does shot attempts.
Well, he's going to have to get time on the floor for that. He had 3 assists tonight, and I just like to see him play the way he's playing right now. See if there's any toughness, if he has any toughness out there on the floor. I don't know. That's such a tough question. Well, let's get back to that in a couple of months.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's hit a shot inside the arc yet either. I mean, there's a lot of things he's still left to do. I don't have a vision on who he is. The league scouting report's got to get out on it. It's a great question, because I don't have an answer. So it's certainly a good question there. That probably wraps up POSTCAST. Any final thoughts on this one, Ron, before we head to Indianapolis?
Well, again, this is the ball game that the Jazz had to win. This is the ball game that they did win. They won the basketball game, and I don't think they shot over 41%, and that says that the defense was definitely there, and they took the 76ers out of everything that they needed to do. And it looks like the offense is it's still a work in progress for some. I like what the Jazz have coming off the bench, and I really like Rodney Hood in the starting lineup there as well.
Well, tomorrow's a good one, because if the Jazz can go steal tomorrow in Indiana, a team that hasn't really found its personality yet, and having a hard time defending, playing small, a 2-1 road trip, this would be very, very good. You really, a 40-45 win team shouldn't really expect to go to Detroit and Indiana and get wins. So you're stealing one on this road trip. If you can go get one in Detroit or Indiana, come home for the home opener on Wednesday. Tickets are available for that at UtahJazz.com, plus some great packages. Daniel, sorry we don't have time to get to your question, but please continue to send them in. This has been POSTCAST.